1, just over here, part 1. So this is now between 9 and 9:30 Eastern, right? So this is your pre-market plan. So we want to build a map. So in other words, there are no trades in this window. You're preparing, mapping out key levels, reading a volume profile. That's all you're doing. You're trying to find your key levels and you're trying to read the market profile to validate those key levels. By 9:30 Eastern, you'll know exactly which levels matter and where volume sits, right? These are the two fundamental concepts that you need in your trading, right? So even if you look at a chart right now this is Thursday, the 20th of May. If you look at this chart right now, what you'll notice is we have the fib here, we have the equilibrium. So this is premium, this is discount. You will have key levels here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'll also have a volume profile, right? So you're going to know where the previous day's high volume is, right? Where the previous day's high volume is. You're going to know where these high volume areas are. So if you're trading the charts, right, you've got to understand where are the key levels, right? Where do you want to get in? Where do you want to get out? This is absolutely critical. And what the application does is it forces you to get clear, right? So let's dive in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to kind of zoom out a little bit, right? I'm going to zoom out to here. This is the current market structure over here, right? So what you see here, this is ES futures on the 15-minute time frame. What you can see here is a high, a low, a high, and a low. So for those who don't understand the 4-step positioning process, right, I'm just going to write it down here. 4-step positioning process. This is the 4-step positioning process, right? So what this stands for is structure, targeted liquidity. Oh, you can't see that. So what this stands for here is structure, targeted liquidity, equilibrium, and price imbalance, right? You want to master all 4 of these in the pre-market plan. Okay, so let's quickly break through this, right? Let's dive in. Okay, so are we in a bullish or bearish trend? And so how I define this is a very simple way. What we can see here is the last structural break was here, right? This was the last structural break. So this low, so we had a high, we had a low, we had a high, then we had a low down here. Okay, so what happened is this was the last low that got broken. So technically when looking at this, we are actually in somewhat of a bearish trend, or that's how the application defines it. So we want to click bearish. Now, when we click bearish, what's going to happen now is the application will force you to enter the structural points. And the reason I've integrated this into the system is because a lot of traders, they get stuck or they get confused or they misread their market structure. And as you can see, it's a knock-on effect. It messes up everything else in the system. So we want to quickly spend a good minute getting our structure down, right, and tight. So how we're going to do that is how the system prompts us is we want to look at the current high and low, which is obviously here and here, and we want to look at the previous high and low, right? So which is going to be here, I'll circle it, and here. Now let's take a look at how the system works, because the system will prompt you to type in the high and low and then the next recent high and low. So let's quickly go and do that. I'll make this quick. So you want to go to the most recent, the previous high and low, which is going to be 74.53. So I'm just going to type that in here. 74.53. So 74.53. And then we have the low down here. All right. So this low down here is going to be 73.63. Okay. 73.63. 73.63. Now from here we have the next high, which is the most recent high and low, right? So most recent high, which is the all-time high on ES, that's going to be 75.40 roughly, right? 75.40. So let's just type that in here. 75.40. And then we have the low down here, right? The most recent structural low, which is going to be 73.53. Okay, 73.53. Okay, so what will happen is the system will prompt you to type in a bearish, bullish or bearish trend, in which case it's bearish. Just to quickly go over that, the most recent low, that the last structural break was the low, so that then defines it as bearish, right, according to the application. Once we've typed in our high and low, it will then prompt you to type in the most recent high and low, right? So first is structure. So let's quickly go back to our understanding over here. So first we have market structure, right? So let me just type that in here. First we have S. Now it is T. Now T represents the most recent high and most recent low. So we call this targeted liquidity. The reason it's targeted liquidity is because we are interested in this high and this low. This is where the liquidity is resting. right? This is the only liquidity we focus on, hence why we call it targeted liquidity. So what the application will do is it will force you to type in the most recent high and low. So the most recent high and low is the same as here. So I'm just going to be quick with this. It's going to be 75.40 and this is going to be 73.53. Right, 73.53, again, ES futures, okay? So now what we can do is we have zoomed in to the most recent high and the most recent low. This is our dealing range, okay? So we've covered halfway through. So we've done